Okay, here we go. We're here till 12 noon. You're listening to AM 1320 WARA. Tom Rafferty sitting in for Mr. Healy as he's at a pontificating meeting up in Maine. He'll be back on Monday. Hey, we have two phone callers, so I'm not sure which one is which, but let's go to this line. Good morning. You're on WARA. Hello? Hello, hello. I don't see anybody there. Okay, so let's drop that call. Let's go to this line. Hello, you're on WARA.
Yes, this is Steve.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
Good. I think your other line's open. I didn't hear. I heard dead air, so I thought it wasn't coming.
Yeah, I just closed that line down because nobody was there, but that's okay.
Okay.
Good to meet you on the air once again. You've kind of been a caller, a listener to this radio station.
Paul calls me Etienne or Agent 224, and I used to call you way back in the day.
You did. I remember. That was, oh my gosh, ancient history, right?
Years ago. It was before the personal computers and before the internet or before, all that social media stuff.
Before cell phones.
Pretty much, yeah.
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 You've been interviewed. I didn't realize that you are so active in issues and certainly in the Commission for the Disabled here in Attleboro. How long have you been in that group, and what kind of issues do you hope to make better here in the city of Attleboro?
Well, we want to get people with disabilities recognized, like with the wheelchair stroll was a great success, and let people know that they can come to the disabilities. There's a complaint process. If you go on the City Hall website, sometimes we haven't had a lot of issues with people complaining and with concerns about accessibility. I'm working on getting how they have the sound up there on North Main, and when you press the button, that's for like blind people, and it also vibrates for deaf people. We want one on Union Street because that's pretty hazardous over there, and it's a safety issue as well. So just issues that involve the disabled. There's so many disabilities. So of course, me being totally blind, I of course would be focusing on things that concern me. But we want an inclusive, all disabilities, and just be more visible. And hopefully, I don't know if they're looking for more people to be on the commission. I think they are because a couple people left, or for various reasons. And I'll ask the mayor if you're interested, if you do have a disability, or even if you don't, or if you know somebody, or if you're passionate about it, contact the mayor's office, because the mayor needs to get, if they are looking for people to be on that commission, you have to talk to the mayor. Right. So it's just one of those things. We've come a long way as far as, of course, the ADA. I could go on all day about that, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. I love the fact that I can do early voting at City Hall, walk into City Hall, plug in the headphones, and vote like everyone else. It reads all the, I don't know if you've seen that technology for the blind where things are read out. So, like I use my phone and I don't have to see the screen.
Wow. Okay.
And that's how I wrote all of my books, because I don't have sight. I used to have some sight, like you said, I'm legally blind. So all the technology allows us to, blind people or visually impaired, to do things without. The technology is amazing. We had none of that when we didn't even have half the technology we have when I was a kid.
Sure. When they say that, when you are legally blind, when your sight is so minimal that you really need the aid of other things to really, really, function. But they say that when that happens, that you develop a lot of other senses. They become stronger. You really become very independent. You have mastered the disability. What senses do you have now? What abilities do you believe you have really escalated within yourself because of the blindness?
A lot of it's the training, because obviously they call it orientational mobility. When you're blind, you learn how to get around with a cane, how to listen to parallel traffic when you're crossing streets. The senses aren't really, you learn to pay attention to them more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great point, because now as I'm getting older, you have hearing issues. So now that's probably the biggest one when you're blind. All the senses, smell is important. You say, oh, I'm getting near the bakery, or, all the senses. But I think hearing, it probably is the most important as a blind person. But the thing with elderly or getting older is losing the hearing. It makes it a lot harder, and that's where people need to learn Braille. Like, if I lost my hearing today, I'd be totally deafblind, and my only connection to the outside world with technology and others would be Braille, because they have electronic Braille displays. I can read anything online in Braille, so you don't have to wait for books anymore like the old days in those big, hefty Braille books, and they cost a lot. And that technology is still kind of expensive on that, but I'm able to connect online that way as well. So, of course, because I couldn't use the text-to-speech if I didn't have my hearing. So it is a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've gone quite a bit into being educated on your disability. In 1968, you went to the Perkins School for the Blind, and then you went to Rhode Island College, I believe, and graduated with a BA Computer Science degree. And then in 2014, to hone those skills and keep, up with all of that, you went to the Carroll Center for the Blind. Where's that located? I haven't heard of that one. Newton,
Massachusetts. Yeah, that was developed by Father Carroll for the veterans after around World War II. I don't know the exact date. I should, but he was concerned. It started for veterans that came back wounded, and the ones that lost their sight, and they have a good program for newly blinds. And I went there because in 2014 they knew I was going to lose my sight, all the remainder of my sight. 'Cause Perkins, I could read large print. I knew I was blind, but I could do a lot of things that people that aren't blind could do. So I was preparing to read Braille, to learn the technology, because I was at the point now. I used to be able to use the computer. Maybe I put my face near the screen, but I could read print, even small print. I had reading glasses. Of course, I had to be an inch away from the page. So now the technology, especially learning how to cook without being able to see, having measuring cups that have Braille on them, or learning other ways to cook. Rather, it's like you can't see that the what color it is, but you can smell it, you can hear it. Of course, you have thermometers. So I learned those non-visual skills, and of course, the orientation mobility, learning how you really can cross the street without seeing it, and but you really have to learn skills, and it's good to have traffic lights. That's why we're talking about Union Street, because I can do it, but it's taking your life into your own hands, even if you can see, because there's really no good traffic lights over there. But anyway, I did that in 2014, and luckily, when I did lose my sight in 2019, I got kind of like a refresher, and that's when I really picked up on the Braille, because I hadn't really learned Braille. That I was doing it, but now it was what they do at the Carroll Center when you have some vision is they kind of want you to wear a blindfold so you can practice the skills. And, of course, in 2014, I went home and I had some vision as well. I'm not going to wear a blindfold every day. So they did prepare me for when I did lose it, because I wasn't in panic mode. So luckily I was able to go back and get some refreshers and continue with my life.
Excellent. Very, very good. Steve, is it Theberge? Is that how you pronounce it?
Theberge. That's
Deberge.
Theberge.
Okay.
And of course, Paul always says Theberge because it's the French. If you put the accent, but it's Theberge. I know people always stumble on my name. They add R's there. They put R's in there, but it's not your common. It's French Canadian.
It's Deberge.
C.
Oh, C as in C.
T as in C, like THEE phonetically, I guess you.
So say it again.
Theberge.
Okay, Theberge. I get it. Okay, got it.
I should have been a Smith or a Jones.
On the phone lines is Steve Theberge. He has quite a lot of accomplishments. He has a disability which has not held him back. He is very active with the Attleboro Commission on Disabilities. He also has really gone on into learning the technology of so many things that aid people who are legally blind. Is Braille basically Braille is you use your fingers, right? And you just read over, there's certain, I don't know how it's called, but you kind of, there's little bumps and digits and little, circles that you can tell, what words are what words. Is that basically how it works?
Yeah, a Braille cell is like like dice. If you look at the boxcar they call it.
Yes.
That's how a Braille cell is set up. You get 3 on the left and 3 on the right. That's one Braille cell, and there's combinations of one dot, no dots. Of course, there's a space. So, you might have dot, the first dot, the fourth dot, and on the first dot on the left, and then on the right, the top 2 dots. That would be the letter D. So they have all the letters. They have a number sign. They have things for punctuation. And then when it gets more advanced, they have what they call, they used to call it grade 1 Braille, and contracted Braille they call it now, which is basically, since Braille takes up a lot of space because you need your fingers to read, it's bigger than print. So they have things for THE has a contraction, like certain combinations of letters, so you don't have to write out, like my name, THE would be one Braille cell. It would be on the left, it would be the 4th and the 5th. But this is different instead of having 3 dice left to right, you would only have 1, and it would symbolize THE. They have CH, SH, all the. So when you first learn Braille, of course, you learn A, B, C, A to Z, and then there's a number sign, and the letters A through K are numbers. So you do number sign, and A is 1, and it goes up to L, and K would be 0. So number sign AK would be the number 10. And so they save space because, if you're writing a book, any book was put into Braille, so they call it contracted Braille. Now Unified English. I don't want to get too much into it, but you learn shortcuts where one, instead of it being one letter, it means it's a contraction. It's a sign of all letters. It's a combination of letters, and it's saving space.
I know a lot of people who, even people who have 20/20 vision, 20/30 vision, a lot of folks can take the Braille courses. I know they're offered at different places. One of my friends from the theater actually took a couple of courses in Braille and also in, speaking with your hands, sign language.
ASL,
yeah, and
language.
that also is offered in a lot of different places. I think that would be a very good thing for people to learn. Certainly Braille. Was Helen Keller probably one of the first that kind of pioneered the Braille system?
No, I'd have to check the dates. Louis Braille, they had systems before Braille, different raised prints. She would have used some kind of system. I would have to check the dates on the exact dates, but she would have definitely used whatever they were using in those days. They had stuff before. Braille became a standard later. I probably should know all that, but she would have definitely, if Braille was in common use at the time, she would have been using it. But I know at her time there were other systems. It had something called Moon. I can't remember what it was. Moon Type, and to use raised print. They tried that. Braille just became a standard. So she definitely, and then they have. Now it's interesting you mentioned sign language. Now if you're totally blind like I am, and she was, they had the manual alphabet, like finger spelling they used to call it. So like you do certain things, so you can feel the hand, and I could put in your hand, like, write out words. But as far as the other sign language, it's great, but having no vision, I don't know how it works when you have no sight to see. I think sign language is beautiful. Like when I used to have some vision, I could see. It's very intricate. And the thing on the Braille, I think it's great they're offering. A lot of people I know that can see, I could never see well enough where I could actually read Braille with my eyes, which is kind of defeating the purpose. But that's a natural thing, is to use your eyes, because that takes up a lot of the brain. Vision takes most of the brain. And someone was telling me at the Carroll Center that even if you're born blind, when you're reading Braille, the visual cortex of the brain is actually what is taking over. It's amazing how the brain works and how versatile the brain is.
My guest is Steve Thiberge. He is legally blind. He lost all of his sight just about 5 years ago. We're talking to him about, what it's like to cope and live and grow as a sight-disabled person. He is very active. He's been continues to be active in the Attleboro Commission for Disabilities. He's also written 3 or 4 published science fiction books. We're going to take a real short break here, Steve, and then we're going to come back and we'll talk about your books, which I believe are absolutely fascinating. And if you want to give us a call, it's 1-508-222-1320. Back with my guest, Steve Thiberge, after this. Well, there you are. There's a homegrown band, the J. Giles Band, and brought up here, most of them from the Boston area, made it big years ago. And on the phone lines, we have Steve Thiberge with us. Steve, you like all kinds of music. Were you a fan of J. Giles back in the day?
Oh, yeah, I used to love the rock music. We kind of grew up with that. I did. And, yeah. Definitely.
Now, you're originally from Lewiston, Maine.
Yeah, I was born in Lewiston. We moved to Attleboro probably when I was 9 months old. And, yeah, so I pretty much don't remember, of course. But
yeah. So you didn't really have any friendships or
well, I have
many
a lot of relatives
ties.
in Maine. We used to go visit and go up to Canada, of course, because we were kind of like, that's what it was. My mother's from Canada, and my other grandparents moved to the States, so we kind of moved downwards.
Yeah, I guess so. Right. Now you have siblings. What is it? Sisters or a brother and sister?
My sister Denise and my older brother Remy and my younger sister Karen.
Are any of them sight disabled or who have lost their sight at all?
My sister has no sight in her right eye. They were, I guess they feel it's genetic. So they got lucky. I mean, so I was the third. So they didn't really know back then as much either. So
sure. Yeah, I was the third too. I'm the third of 4.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I was a baby for a while, and then my younger sister showed up.
Me
Quite a
too.
while later.
That's exactly right.
Isn't that
Yes,
being displaced?
that is right. I always thought I was going to be the baby of the family, and I really relished that role. And when my younger sister was born 6 years later, that was that was a real. I mean,
Yeah, you got to give up the throne for the younger sister.
Yep. And you know what? She's a terrific lady. She actually lives in Cranston, Rhode Island. If it weren't for her, I probably would not even be living here. Both of my sisters kind of got together and said, "What are we going to do with Tom?" you know. And away we went to Providence, Rhode Island, years and years ago. But I
lived in Providence for a while.
Did you?
Yeah, Rhode Island is a nice small state.
It is.
Has a unique flavor.
Now, before we get into these books, I want to also ask you, because this is amazing. You work for I have it written down here. Oh, the MBTA. You're an ADA compliance tester. Do you work out of your house? Do you work certain days?
I haven't worked for a while there, but I used to go basically ride all the transportation and with a partner or an observer, and we see if I don't know how much you take the bus, and that's all ADA. A lot of it's ADA. It says that next stop, La Salette. But that's not MBTA. But they'll tell you the next stop we're arriving at, and little things like that. Or can I have the ramp?
Right.
Can I have the priority seating? And so there's a checklist you do for the awareness of what they're doing for people that have disabilities. Now more, you mentioned that with COVID. I do a lot from home now, where I test websites, because a lot of companies are becoming more aware of people with disabilities and making them accessible. So because even though I can use the computer and speech, there are issues with technology and things working together. So they'll say, let's work on this website and see what the issues are that you're having with your screen reader, which is what talks to me from my computer. So they have companies, I think, especially being computers, I think they should do that ahead of time. But you know how it is. People don't think about those. It's kind of like we run into the Commission on Disabilities. They should have done something ahead of time. So that's one thing we're trying to do on the Commission with Disabilities is fix things before, because it's easy to fix things before their problems rather than retrofit them after.
Yeah, that's certainly the case. And now with this MBTA, did you actually, when you were working there, did you actually ride on the buses to make sure that checklist was done?
I never knew there was so many things. I even went on the ferry and out to Hingham, and the commuter rail, the subways, the buses. Yeah,
wow.
I've been almost everywhere in the heat and the cold. So I'm not doing that so much as I used to, but like I said, I'm doing a lot more from home with web testing for other, kind of like freelance now.
Yeah. When the Americans with Disabilities Act was written into law, Daddy Bush, as we call him, or George Sr. Bush, was the president, and it was written so, there were so many injustices and so much work to be done to help disabled people, get access into different buildings and have rights that, they should always have. I don't know how many lawsuits were filed over the years. Do you ever hear of anyone, maybe in this area, filing a lawsuit on behalf of ADA?
Yeah, they actually, now you mentioned the ADA, they have a lot of specific things for like wheelchairs, like measurements. And the ADA is great, but number one, when the ADA came out, we didn't have the technology we have now. So they couldn't anticipate some of these accessibility issues. And there was actually a couple of unscrupulous lawyers, law firms that were hiring blind people to test websites, and they were so happy. And they paid good money And except the lawyer would come away with 20. I don't think litigation that should be a last resort, but I think a lawsuit, if it's necessary and it's, you can't compromise with the people you're having issues with, is fine. But I think some people, they're so happy and they're like, you're not in compliance. See, that's one thing with the MBTA is they were they wanted to be educated. They don't want to yell at a bus or say, hey, you didn't announce the stops because the speaker wasn't working. Because that's against the 80. They just say they get training and maybe after a while they get rusty and just remind people. Most people aren't. Yeah, and there are some people that with disabilities that we're just like everyone else that just are so happy, I guess. But unfortunately, though, that's the only enforcement mechanism we have. I think education and communication is probably that's another thing with Commission on Disability. We want to just educate and just have things communication, and that way we don't have to sue. We don't have to sue the city because they're not doing what they're supposed to. Because people don't know about it. If you don't know somebody with a disability, you can't fault them for not. I know they say ignorance of the law, but I think you have to be reasonable and say, okay, what are we going to do about it? I mean, I could get technically where I live, and I don't, I say, could you send me email? They send notices out. My phone can read some of that stuff, but I'm not going to sue them because technically they didn't fulfill my request to send something in electronic format. I can call them and say, what was that notice you sent today? Or, people have to be reasonable in their attitude.
I see what you're saying, right. Steve Thiberge with me here on the phone lines in hour number 1. Steve has been interviewed many times. I was very impressed. I heard the interview there on Channel 10 that you did a number of years ago. But getting now to all of this that you're active in, how did you find time to write these science fiction books? They are online. And I got to tell you, I read kind of the reviews that you wrote on all of them, and they're very, very, it's really very, very good imaginative writing. You really, you captivate the reader, and it's, I want to be able to, can I read them online or can I get a copy of them? Because I'd love to read them.
You can order them on Kindle, Amazon. Like, I don't know if you do ebooks.
Yeah, I can.
You can order. We have laminate hard copies if you're into more old-fashioned books. We have paperbacks, and pretty soon I'm going to be releasing ones that are text-to-speech, so it won't be a human voice. And they are available for people the first 2 books are available on NLS. It's the National Library Services for the Blind, where they have readers read books. So my first 2 books I read, and those are free of charge for print disabled and blind. So you can definitely order all 4 of them.
Can you get them in a bookstore? Like some of the.
No, not usually, because so much is online. I haven't been fortunate enough to figure out. I'm not a very good marketer. I can't even write ads, really. It's such, people say, well, it's a different kind of writing. A lot of books, there's so few brick and mortar bookstores left. You could go to Barnes and Noble, and I am in there and order them, and in an Amazon bookstore, I suppose. But
sure. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got interested in writing, the type of writing that you do, and these books? Tell us how you kind of thought about putting these books together and the stories, and there is themes there of people who are disabled, people who are blind. There's love stories involved in it, and it's really fascinating. Tell us. Well, wait a minute. All right, we'll wait on those underwriting announcements. Tell us about how you got involved in this writing, and what the purpose, what your goals were this?
Well, I always enjoyed writing since I was a kid, and when I was like 10 or 11, I wrote about aliens. It was a short story, and there was a college, and I wrote about other aliens, like a short story. So then it became a point where it's like a lot of people say, I want to write a book. So first I was going to write a book, and there are a lot of autobiographies about blind people and blind people that went to blind schools. Like, yeah, I'm sure I could write a good book about that. And then I said, oh, let's write about these aliens, because I wrote about two alien races. And then I don't know where it came from. One day I said, you know what, why don't you combine it? Instead of being a straight autobiography or straight sci-fi, because it's better to write what you know. And so over time, I started writing, it took a lot. My first book took forever to come out, years, really, over a decade. So it was a combination of basically an autobiography of somebody who was blind and two science fiction alien races. And, of course, I changed a lot of that. Those two races were evolved together. It's like if we had somebody on Mars and somebody on Earth. Now, wouldn't that be an interesting?
Yeah.
I mean, we have enough problems on one planet. So you can imagine now having two races that, there's going to be a lot of issues. And they discover Earth. And so the first three books, although they go backwards on the website, but the first three books are basically a series so that aliens contact somebody because they have a message and they want to try to help humanity, but they don't want to, they could conquer us. So that's the first three books. And of course, the second book is an alien who was, as a child, abused, and she wants to rule the Earth. She's got a lot of issues, I guess you call it now. And the third book takes place in the future, 50,000 years. The aliens say, maybe we can fix the things that happened with those aliens in the past. And the fourth book, the short, is a novella, and it's basically was inspired by all the stuff we're hearing in the news about artificial intelligence. And I'm like, basically the fourth book takes place in the 2030s, where there was a breakthrough in computer chips. Computers are really tens of thousands of times faster than they are now. And androids and humans, you can't tell the difference between them unless you put them under an X-ray. So there's even, I don't want to give too much away, there's even an android who became president. That's in the 2040s, so we don't have to worry about that, right?
Mm-hmm. Wow, that is amazing.
I love the imagination of, and in my second book, I thank my dad and my English teacher at Perkins, because my dad used to take me to a lot of movies at the Union Theater, and he wasn't a big sci-fi fan, but he had patience with me, and we'd see all kinds of movies. I mean, not just sci-fi, and he was into old-time boxing, and I think sometimes he'd rather have been home doing that. But, we had a great time. We had a lot of interesting conversations. So I thank my dad for that inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
He at least, I could tell sometimes he was like, that's kind of unusual stuff, but he didn't stifle my imagination. He actually fed it.
Wow, that's
amazing.
Like
that. That's cool,
Sure. Steve Thiberge, he is legally blind. He is very active in the Attleboro Disability Commission. He has a lot of technology, a lot of knowledge to help people who are legally blind. He knows Braille. He knows a lot about communication on the computer regarding being sight disabled. Very active. Graduated from college. He also worked for the MBTA, kind of as a ADA compliance tester. You're a fascinating guy, Steve. I never knew all those times when you were calling me that you were doing all of these things.
Well, I was just starting when I was calling you. I think I was probably still in college then.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
I wouldn't have had as much of a resume back then. I didn't have any books. And if you had told me then that I was going to be where I am now, or if I had told you then, you never know. Like what?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's like 40 years ago now. When I used to call your show.
86, 87, 88. Yep. Wow, that was a ways ago. There's Doug Green. I think he's.
And we didn't even have Facebook then. We didn't have Twitter.
Yeah.
The way it was better, but.
Okay. Hey, my other guests are here. We're just about out of time, but I want to ask you one more question, just so that people really can understand you and get to know you. This is not anything on disability, but I mean, maybe it is. You know, we have this huge presidential election coming up, a very, very important election. You've got the Republican Donald Trump that everybody knows and dislikes to some degree. And then you have Kamala Harris, who is really reviving the Democratic Party and really, they're going to make a run at it. So it's going to be an interesting election. What's your take on this? What are you thinking about the candidates, and what do you think the result's going to be?
I don't know. I don't know who's going to win, but I do project that whoever wins, it's going to be. I hope this country can pull together, because if Trump wins, there's going to be a lot of. The Democrats are going to say Trump stole the election, and of course, if Harris wins, he's going to say she stole it, and that's just the beginning. And if I could say it, I can only pray, because there's nothing else I can do, because I don't have any power, and nobody else does, that we get together as a nation. And, I knew somebody who said, I wish that they had gotten Trump. And it's like, I don't care if you hate the guy. That is the most horrible thing to wish, that he died. I wouldn't wish it on Harris. I wouldn't wish it on Biden. That's getting to a point where what are we going to start? Why don't they have a duel or a boxing match for who's going to be president, if we're going to get that primitive about?
Right.
And I just hope I'm wrong, but I think no matter who wins, I think we're in deep. As far as the population, I don't really want to get into who I think is better, but I think, because we don't have much time either, like you said. But I think we could be in for a real. No matter who wins, I'm afraid for the. I'll be glad when it's over, I hope, but I hope it doesn't turn violent. And we've been pretty lucky, but there's been a lot of crazy people out there on both sides.
That is for sure, absolutely. Hey, Steve, I want to thank you so much for your time. We got to do this again. And what is if people want to go on and listen to some of the interviews you've done, what's the website where they can log on to?
I was hoping we were running. It's DLD, Delta Lima Delta Books. That's all one word. DLDbooks.com. /. And my full name, so that's S as in Sam, T as in Thomas, E, Edward, P-H-E-N, so it's Stephen with a P-H. No spaces, and my last name, T as in Tom, H, Harry, E, B as in boy, E, R as in Raymond, G as in George, and E as in Edward. That's my website. It has all my books. Yeah, I'm really glad I really thank you that you did your homework, so to speak. You really looked at all the stuff in there. You went back to that old interview, and so it comes up on top, my latest book, and then they go backwards, so they're in chronological. So they have all the synopses of the books, and I have some and then, like I told you, my bio is on the bottom. That's where you found out all that information.
Okay. I will mention that website again.
And they can email me as well. They get my email I did have my phone number up there, but I was getting a lot of spam calls.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
So I pulled that out. Yeah, but the email is there, and I have all my LinkedIn and my YouTube channels listed on there, and so yeah.
Who interviewed you here at ARA in the past?
Paul interviewed me twice.
Paul did. Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah, he interviewed me 2017, and I think I don't know, must have been 2019-ish. Yeah, it was
Okay.
April 1st, April
Right.
Fool's Day, I think.
Oh, my goodness. All right. We are out of time. Steve, thank you very, very much. Steve DeBerge, legally blind, a member of the Attleboro Commission on Disabilities, works part-time at different jobs where he's testing the regulations of ADA and making sure they're compliant, and the author of 4 different books that he wrote himself. I want to thank you so much for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you. There is Steve DeBerge with us. We have our friends from